For any of you that didn't see my post-match reaction video to Bayern Munich's dismantling of us last night, maybe best don't, as I've rarely been as wound up. Spurs were insipid, slow, and worryingly unable or unwilling to get on the ball and play. I'm feeling a little more logical about it this morning and will bring you my thoughts. But before that, it's back to the transfer grindstone. Of course it is. There are some exciting new links as Spurs scour the world for some creativity down the middle of the park. All this and more on today's episode of Daily Tottenham Transfer News. Guys, thanks so much for watching and listening wherever you are. Do give this video a like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and come over to the audio podcast platforms as well. Come and give me a subscribe or a follow. Just type in the Spurred On podcast to Spotify or Apple Podcast. But let's get going. And Thomas Frank was asked after last night's game whether Spurs are looking to get new signings in after James Madison's injury. As expected, came out yesterday that it is an anterior cruciate ligament injury. He'll be having an operation in the next few days, and people are saying he'll miss the majority of this season. But I personally, and this is just my opinion, I would be saying to James Madison now, don't even think about this season. Even if you're only out for, 7-8 months, then use the rest of the time for recovery and strengthening so that next season you can come back at full whack, because he's had too many injuries. He had an injury when he was at Leicester that kept him out of the majority of their relegation season. And even in his couple of years, 3 years at Spurs, he's just had too many injuries and he needs to strengthen. We need him back strongly. Thomas Frank said this about it. He said, I think we're definitely in the market in general. Of course, when players get a long-term injury, we need to look into that. But generally, we're in the market. Yes, nobody feels close or far away. I'm not saying anything before there's anything that is completely 100%. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that feels like a little bit of a Morgan Gibbs-White burn there, where Spurs regretting that we've publicly, or at least, leaked that we're about to give a medical to a player when actually we are not getting it over the line. So the big reports yesterday are that Spurs are seriously interested and have made a bid for Como's Niko Paz, the Argentinian playmaker who is deemed across Europe to be an unbelievable talent. Apparently the bid we put in was 40 million euros. He's valued by Como at 70 million euros. Former Real Madrid player. They have a buyback clause on him, and he's really doing well under Cesc Fabregas at Como. So DiMarzio came out with the first report. Then Jack Pitt-Brooke, highly reputable source, obviously one member of the View from the Lane podcast. Make sure you listen to that if you don't already. He said Tottenham are interested in Como attacking midfielder Niko Paz. Spurs are considering a move for the 20-year-old as they try to add more creativity to their squad before the start of the season. But they have denied making a bid for the player. Well, that doesn't surprise me, because it's very likely, as far as I'm concerned, that Tottenham have tested the water, probably through intermediaries with a bid or what they were willing to pay, found out from Como that they want more than that, and then Spurs have leaked to the journalists that they're comfortable with to say, oh no, we haven't made an official bid club to club. Ryan Taylor then came out and says Spurs sources deny that a bid has been lodged for Niko Paz, so that kind of goes along with what I'm saying. Sam Wallace said, just one more piece on Niko Paz before I move on to the next bit of transfer speculation. This seems to me like one that is possible because, like I say, when Jack Pitt-Brooke gets involved, that shows that it is a kind of tier one bit of transfer information. I do prefer it when we get these deals done completely under the radar, and I guess it is probably frustrating Johan Lang and Tottenham when they're coming out. But also, bear in mind, this is a Serie A transfer. So what does that mean? That means to me, Don Fabio Paratici is back on his iPhone headphones. Daniel Levy has given him the call and said, mate, we need you. We're struggling to get our transfer targets over the line. And he's gone and said, well, Niko Paz over at Como in Serie A has been doing really well. Bring him in to Spurs. Let me know what you think of Paz in the comments, and if you think this one's got legs. Is he the kind of player that Spurs could get in? One thing I will say before I move on to the next bit of transfer speculation, I am beginning to get frustrated, like a lot of the Spurs fan base, with the slowness in which we are getting players in. There is no way that Daniel Levy can look at the performance against Bayern Munich yesterday and look at the injuries that we've had to Madison. Kulusevski, as I'll tell you later, Thomas Frank has said, is going to be out for a long time. And last year, we struggled with no creativity when Madison and Kulusevski were injured. We tried to get Morgan Gibbs-White in, and that now looks like more of an opportunistic attempt to sign a player rather than a kind of strategy, because they obviously found out that Gibbs-White had a 60 million release clause, tried to get that. but didn't have backup number 10s if that fell through, and it has fallen through. So now it just seems like Spurs are scrabbling a bit. And once again, Ali Gold talks about this a lot. Make sure you follow Ali Gold if you don't already. Brilliant, brilliant Spurs journalist. He talks about how just Spurs seem to flip-flop from strategy to strategy, be that managerial strategy or transfer strategy. And this is another example of it. Paratici was good at spinning kind of 10 plates in a row, wasn't he? So if you missed out on one target, you'd go down to the next target. Bring him back in. I have to say, I've been conflicted before about whether Paratici should come back in after he was basically done for criminality within the football industry, but bring him back in. His transfer strategy worked for us, and Johan Langer is starting to get a lot of heat from the Spurs fan base. And I don't think this next rumor is really going to help. It's understood that Tottenham will compete with Newcastle United in a bid to sign striker Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea in the event that Spurs sell Richarlison this summer. And Fabrizio Romano confirmed that on YouTube last night. Jackson is a target for Spurs if Richarlison leaves Spurs this summer. For me, Nicholas Jackson obviously is talented, but we have to look elsewhere. Stop getting managers from Chelsea. Stop trying to do business with Chelsea. They don't do business with us anyway. And Jackson just misses far too many chances as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. It just doesn't fill me with any joy, the idea of bringing Nicholas Jackson over. And also, Chelsea put an £80 million valuation on him, which is completely ridiculous. I'll be honest, I'd actually prefer Spurs to get Nkunku from Chelsea than Jackson if there was a choice. Nkunku reminds me of kind of a stockier, more powerful version of Jermaine Defoe. No, very short backlift, for his finishes. Really good movement, and I think he's been wasted at Chelsea just because Chelsea just hoover up and stockpile players. I would prefer Nkunku to Jackson personally because he can play on the left side as well. But let's see what happens. That is not a deal that I can imagine happening. Okay, yesterday it also came out Tottenham eyeing a surprise move for Manchester City winger Savinho. He joined City last time for 30.8 million. Then obviously Jeremy Doku has taken his place. I do like that player, very direct. Obviously has some Premier League experience. That's one I could get behind a little bit more. Also rumours that Monaco's Magez Makliush has been scouted by Tottenham, but it's unclear whether he's an active target for the club. He's another exciting young talent. According to Jay Harris yesterday, Spurs want to sign another centre-back even if Christian Romero stays. That's interesting, isn't it? That really points to me towards the fact that I think Thomas Frank sees Ben Davies now as a left back in his system. I actually think Ben Davies is going to get a lot more minutes than we might expect this year because I think Frank will like the balance that Davies gives us on the left-hand side with Van de Ven on the left-hand side of the two centre-backs. Jed Spence, I think, even though he got caught for one of the goals yesterday, he does defend well in that left-sided position, but it is easy for the opposition to press him onto his wrong side, which makes it then easy for him to give the ball away, basically. Whereas Ben Davies far more comfortable, obviously, on his left-hand side. Okay, Alfie Devine is in advanced talks to join Preston North End on loan, with sources confirming that the proposed deal is expected to include an option to buy, which suggests Spurs may be willing to cut their losses on Alfie Devine and try and take maybe £1 million, £2 million for him. I feel like that's kind of a shame. He is an exciting young player, but I guess there comes a time where just you get too many, you're loaned out too many times, and maybe now he's looking for a permanent deal. According to some reports, Fabio Paratici, in his work as a consultant at Spurs, contacted Bologna sporting director Giovanni Sartori to facilitate a deal for the lesser-spotted Brian Hill. Hill is still injured after getting an injury on loan from Girona. He was on loan at Girona last season. Bologna are apparently keen on the player. Spurs are willing to loan him out with an option to buy. That option would then become an obligation if certain conditions are met. This may include Brian Hill signing a contract extension with Spurs first. That's according to the Corriere dello Sport in Italy. I have to say, if you're Brian Hill, why would you ever sign a contract extension with Spurs? You know that they don't want you. You know that they're trying to sell you. Spurs are just trying to get some money back for their deal. Spurs spent a lot of money on Brian Hill and it has been all wasted. I think we spent something like £25 million on him, plus giving Eric Lamela the other way to Sevilla. And Brian Hill just not suited to the Premier League, far too lightweight. I don't doubt that he'll have a decent career in Spain probably or elsewhere in Europe, but not cut out for the Premier League. And Spurs just trying to find any way through Don Fabio Paratici to make some money back, but it's hard to see it happening. As I said at the top, James Madison confirmed yesterday by the club that he's done an ACL in his right knee. His surgery, according to the club, it says will take place in the coming days, and following that, James will begin his rehabilitation with our medical team. Ryan Taylor says that Dejan Kulusevski is expected to miss the first month of the season, but like I said, Thomas Frank said after game yesterday that he expects him to be out for a long time, so that doesn't sound like only a month to me. I saw a worrying stat from Spurs Express yesterday. Spurs had 5 players record at least 10 goals and assists in the Premier League last season. Sonny, Madders, Brennan Johnson, Dominic Solanke and Decky Kulusevski. Only one of those players is currently available for selection with 6 days until the season starts. There are some worrying signs on the injury front and the recruitment front for Spurs. That is to say the least. All right, guys, before I go on to my thoughts about yesterday's Bayern game, please do give this video a like. Do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to the channel for daily Tottenham transfer news throughout this window. Just less than a month left of the window. Spurs are surely going to be very active from here on in. You have to think. I've been talking a lot about, it seems like, clubs like Spurs and Newcastle basically having to wait to see who hoovers up the players and then fight for the scraps. Well, that fight for the scraps will be happening soon. All right, guys. So like I said at the top, I was very wound up after the Bayern Munich 4 Spurs 0 game yesterday. But today I feel a little bit more logical after a sleep. Look, it is early days in Frank's management. I do feel he went a little bit too direct yesterday. I thought it was a little bit obvious. I thought we could have been a bit braver on the ball. And when we did pop the ball into midfield and then pop it off 1 and 2 touch, it looked okay. And we got some periods of possession. But I'm going to stick to the fact that I think the players were jet lagged yesterday. Thomas Frank said in his interview after the game that there was a lack of energy, and I'm hoping desperately and think that was because of jet lag and too much traveling. They only got back from South Korea a couple of days before. One thing I will say, I don't think Tottenham this season can afford to have any passengers. And once again yesterday, Brennan Johnson just not involved in the game at all. On the left flank, keeping his his boots painted with chalk, a very wide left. Whereas with Mohamed Kudus, if he wasn't getting the ball, he was coming deep and he was coming narrow. And Brennan Johnson has to come and do that. And I don't know why Thomas Frank and Justin Cochran aren't telling him that. And if he's not going to, then frankly, put Matthias Tell on the left-hand side or put Wilson Odobert on the left-hand side, because they will come and do that and get involved in the play more. We could have done with some more support in that midfield yesterday. When we had the ball, we were setting up in a kind of 4-2-4. And that meant there were only 2 central midfielders. They were being pressed hard by Bayern Munich, and Spurs just going long and into the channel every time against 2 centre-backs in Tar and Upamecano, who just, beating Richarlison to every header and winning every single ball. So I don't think the tactics were quite right yesterday. There was a lack of energy for sure. And Thomas Frank did come out afterwards and said, we learned some answers to questions we had yesterday. And he said, we will be ready for the PSG game in a week's time. Well, we're going to need to be a lot more ready than we were yesterday. To say that we miss Dominic Solanke is an understatement. Thomas Frank also said that Solanke won't be too far away. That is good news. We miss his pressing. We miss his guile. We miss his ability to hold the ball up. Yeah, we just miss a number 9 properly. I think Richarlison is best playing off the left, frankly. And he struggled in the 9, throws himself to the ground a little too easily. As I mentioned, just a bit too easy yesterday to press Jed Spence onto his wrong side. And when he was caught for one of the goals, then Thomas Frank brought him off quite quickly and brought Ben Davis on to give more balance. So like I said, I think Davis will get more minutes than we think. And I just hope that over the next few days, Frank gives them a proper break to get over their traveling, get over the jet lag. They've had a tough preseason. They need to go into next week with a clean bill of health and real energy in their legs. Thomas Frank was asked about Destiny Udogi's injury. He said, I'm not worried. We'll know more info in a couple of days. Well, that sounds suitably vague, doesn't it? Harry Kane was asked in the mix zone after the game. Obviously, he scored an unbelievable goal against us yesterday. He was asked on Sonny leaving Spurs. He says it's a great way for his Tottenham career to end, to lift the trophy last year with the team. And now it's a new chapter for him. He'll go to LA, and I wish him all the best. And I hope to see him soon and we can catch up. Harry Kane was also asked about Madders' injury. He said, I'm gutted for him. I spoke to him earlier, and he's obviously gutted. And yeah, I love Madders as a person. I love him as a player. It's so unfortunate to have that injury. Come back and then do it again. So just sending best wishes to him, but he has to stay strong and be ready for the comeback next year. And he was asked whether he'll be watching Spurs next season, and he said always. There's been some stick given to Harry Kane about the fact he doesn't really talk about Spurs anymore. He didn't do anything publicly about Sonny before last night. And he didn't seem to me, from the pictures I was watching, to go and applaud the Spurs fans yesterday, whereas Bayern Munich before the game literally handed Matthias Tell a bouquet of flowers on the pitch. So I think with Harry Kane, there's an element of he's kind of so professional that he doesn't want to do anything whilst playing and being paid by a club that could be deemed to be thinking about his old club. I think it's more that than any kind of resentment. But yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing him as he was subbed off, kind of clapping the Spurs fans. Just one last thing. Ryan Mason was asked about how it was winning that Europa League. He's obviously now gone off to be the West Brom manager. I'll be keeping a close eye on their first game this season over the weekend. He said the Europa League final was incredible, probably the best feeling I've ever had on a football pitch. There was relief and so many other different emotions after going so long without a trophy. At the same time, there was also a realization in my mind that it was the end of the chapter at Tottenham. To leave a mark like that was a very satisfying feeling. I really hope Ryan Mason does well at West Brom. He got some unnecessary stick from some Spurs supporters for some reason, just for being an assistant manager under a few different managers, almost like we're blaming him for our bad form, and that's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching and listening. Do give this video a like on YouTube. Do press that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber, and the notification bell. And also, please do become a member. Really helps me make this daily content for you. Only £1 a month. All the details of how are in the description box below. Enjoy your weekends, guys. Come on, you Spurs.